Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Friday Breakfast Club. My name is Ken Hansen, and I'm the Vice President of the Breakfast Club, filling in for our President Byron Huff, who's traveling. My pronouns are he, him. For those of you new, FFBC is an association of LGBTQ plus individuals and their allies, formed in 1996, and it is a 501(c) entity making your contributions tax deductible. Since its formation, the FFBC has awarded over $500,000 for scholarships that are awarded annually to Iowa high school seniors who have done significant things to reduce homophobia and educate about the LGBTQ issues in their schools and communities. We awarded a record number of scholarships this past June. 20 $3,000 scholarships were awarded regardless of gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, or other protected characteristics. This is thanks to so many generous donors who recognized FFBC scholarships are important to help exceptional young students reach their higher educational goals. The Breakfast Club sends 2 emails a month, one for meetings and one for our newsletter. If you are not receiving them, please send an email or stop at the registration desk and we'll make sure you're added to our database. The next copy deadline for the newsletter is always 2 Mondays prior to the breakfast meeting, which this month is August 18th. We had a couple new authors for the newsletter this past June, and if you ever have anything you want to share, please submit an article to Wade Peterson, the editor. Be sure and follow us on Facebook and YouTube and share our posts to increase our social media reach. At this time, I would welcome any newcomers, and I know there's several in the room, to stand and introduce themselves. I promise it's painless. Just stand up wherever you are. Yeah.
Here in Florida, and I grew up here, so it's been 20 years when I'm back.
Any others? And we welcome you to hang out after the meeting and socialize as much as you like. We don't have to get kicked out of the room, so if you don't have to run off to work, please stay and socialize. I've got some announcements. I would like to thank all the board members for their work putting the June party together. We hope all of you who came enjoyed the air conditioning. We would welcome any feedback to continue to make the party what you would like it to be. Board members have these name tags on, and feel free to let them know what you thought of the party or if you have suggestions to make it better. Iowa Safe Schools has a new executive director. I think he's sitting right back there, Zach. So thanks for being here and thanks for doing the work of Iowa Safe Schools. The Stoner Theater on August 9th, next Saturday, is having a production of Paper Bag Confessions starring Doyle Smeans. Tickets are at the Des Moines performingarts.org. This is a one-man show in which Doyle, who grew up in small-town Iowa, shares his deeply personal journey of coming out later in life. DMPA says Doyle will share his struggle to find his authentic self. His story will make you laugh, cry, and think in a poignant and emotionally moving way that inspires hope. The Garden is also hosting a Here to Pee trans comedy protest tour on Monday, this coming Monday, August 4th. It's led by trans comedian Ren Q. Daw, who is a it's a nationwide comedy protest featuring an all-trans lineup using humor to challenge anti-trans laws while raising funds for local LGBTQ plus nonprofits. So you can find that on Facebook. There's a Rainbow Bowling League for those of you who don't know that and need to get out your bowling shoes. They have a Wednesday Rainbow League that starts September 3rd at 7 p.m. for 28 weeks with three-player teams. You can find them as well on Facebook. Capital City Pride always has things going on. They have their Pride Book Club meets August 13th at the Little Book, and they are exploring Orlando by Virginia Woolf. The Des Moines Gay Men's Chorus is having a fundraiser on Saturday, August 23rd. It's called Hotcakes and Sausage Cabaret Brunch at the Garden Nightclub. So you can find tickets to that at their website. Lots of events. Capital City Pride has created a community calendar specifically meant to promote LGBTQ plus events and activities. Anyone can submit an event which is subject to approval before it's published. I would encourage you all to utilize the calendar. It keeps you apprised of lots of things going on in the community. Our next Board of Directors meeting will be Tuesday, September 9th. We are skipping a meeting in August, so we're not meeting in August. Members are always welcome to attend, so please let us know if you'd like to, and we will make sure you have the location information. And now I'll turn it over to Brad Holland to introduce our speaker.
Good morning, everybody. As Ken said, my name is Brad Holland. I've been a member of FFBC since 2002 and currently serve on the board of directors. This morning, it's my pleasure to introduce my nephew, Brent Johnson. Brent is elected to the presidency of Iowa Farm Federation Bureau in 2021. But Brent's longtime service to Agriculture and Farm Bureau started when he was at a county level and served in several positions through the Calhoun County Farm Bureau. Is this on? Okay, all right. As president of the Farm Bureau Federation, he serves as the chairman of the board of FBL Financial Group and Farm Bureau Life Insurance Companies based in West Des Moines. Brent is the 2020 recipient of the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship Environmental Leader Award. Brent earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in agronomy from Iowa State University and has specialized in precision agriculture, previously working as an agronomist and certified crop advisor. In 2006, Brent founded an independent crop consulting business utilizing cutting-edge technology to advance soil health and data management. In addition to his Farm Bureau responsibilities, Brent farms with his wife, Luann. They grow corn and soybeans on their Calhoun County farm. They have a daughter, Kaylee, as well as son, Matt, who recently became a Wyoming state trooper, and we were visiting about how desolate Wyoming can be, so that's a lot of time on empty roads. And a daughter-in-law, Rebecca, and together they have 4 children, making Brent a happy grandpa of 4. So please join me in welcoming Brent Johnson to the podium.
Very good. Thanks, Brad. It's a pleasure to be here. As Brad said, my main responsibility in life, honestly, is besides family duties, which I absolutely enjoy. I am a 5th generation farmer from Calhoun County. So my great grandfather came over and started our farm in 1893. And actually built our house where we live today in the 1920s. So when we remodel a room every now and then, you can see one remodel, 2 remodel, 3 remodel. I think we're on about 5 right now. So it's we've been in the area for a very long time. I do consider myself a farmer first, and as Brad mentioned, I got involved in the County Farm Bureau many years ago now. Basically, when I went to college, got a degree, I had to work in the professional field for a while, and it took me to a lot of places and had a lot of experiences. but I always wanted to go back home and be a farmer. That's what I firmly believe I was put on this earth to do. And when I had that opportunity to go back home after an uncle retired, I wanted to get involved in the community. And so Farm Bureau was that place that asked me to come to a meeting. So I went to a monthly meeting at the Calhoun County Farm Bureau. And the next meeting that I went to a month later, they elected me as treasurer of the County Farm Bureau, and figured they had a live one. So so I said yes to a few more opportunities along the way, and has really it's really been I've gained so much more than I've given, and I continue to try to give back to this organization, and I don't feel like I'm ever going to get ahead of that personal debt that I feel towards it. So it's an absolutely tremendous organization. But today I'd like to have more of a conversation than a presentation. I do have a handful of slides, but it's always more interesting to me to talk with a group and answer the questions that you have and explore anything that's on your mind. So before I get started, I'm curious, how many people in the room have heard of Farm Bureau? That's really good. How many people know what Farm Bureau is? Not so many more. How many understand that Farm Bureau has an insurance company? Most people. Are people familiar with the Federation side of Farm Bureau? Hardly anybody, which is actually very typical. So that's that really brings me into, wow, you can't see that at all. So this is a obviously a very abbreviated timeline, but clear on the left side of the screen in the early 1900s. Really in the late 1800s, Iowa State University, all the land grant universities were being formed, and their extension services were also being formed. And so in that relationship with extension is really the roots of the Farm Bureau Federation. So at one time they were considered the same thing, and eventually became separated through various different things. But it's called the friendly divorce, if you will. Today there is really no tie other than our history, and we do work a lot together. But that is really the start of our organization. And in 1918 is actually when the Federation was formed. So we had some counties coming along. Clinton County along the Mississippi River was actually the first one in 1912. So it started with the county. So the county started, and then a couple more counties came along, and then eventually they got to about 16 or 18 counties, and figured, what, we need a state organization. So that happened in 1918. That happened in Marshalltown that year. And so then, so we were basically there to, if you think about Chamber of Commerce for a town or a city, Farm Bureau at those days was looked at the chamber for the farmers. We need a common voice to make sure that our priorities are heard where they need to be heard, because we've got, even like today, farmers are well outnumbered. They were the majority back then, but in their centers, the town people certainly outnumbered the individual farmers in the communities. So then fast forward a little bit, and we get to the 1939. 1939 was really when our insurance company started. So if you think about what's going on in 1939, we're coming out of the Great War. We've got the Great Depression. We've got all these things. We've got the industrial age coming about in agriculture, and people are quickly transitioning from horses and oxen to tractors. And so the liability, the exposure was something like had never been experienced before in the agriculture sector. And the only insurance company available was on the East Coast, and that just didn't feel right. So the Iowa Farm Bureau started the insurance company for the farmers in 1939. Fast forward through a whole bunch of other history, which we won't talk about. But today, our insurance company is as you all displayed very well. Our insurance company is very, very well known. The federation is still the same federation that it was. It's dwarfed now by our insurance company. Our insurance company, we have now partnered with I believe 14 other states that utilize our insurance company. So in one fashion or another, PC or life or a combination thereof. So as chairman of the board, it's a unique space for a farmer. So I didn't get here on my merits. I got here by my position. And I got here by being an elected farmer as chairman of the insurance companies. So I had a lot to learn. I still consider myself having a lot to learn when it comes to finance, the corporate world of finance, the corporate world of insurance, the business structures of all that. But it's important for our organization that a farmer is the chairman, is the leader of that organization, to make sure that the roots and the focus stay true to the original intent. So that's a really quick, fast, and dirty overview. On the federation side, that's everything I'll be talking about today is all on the federation side. So we can have a discussion about insurance if that's where you guys want to go, but I want to talk about the federation. It is our main entity, if you will. So our mission is to create a vibrant future for agriculture, farm families, and their communities. So everything that we do really revolves around that mission, like many organizations' mission statements. This is the board of directors. So there are 9 districts in the state of Iowa, and then a president and a vice president. So there are 11 members to our state board. Every one of these folks are farmers. They're all elected from their membership to serve the organization. So at the very top of our organization truly is elected farmers that are running the Iowa Farm Bureau. The only 2 staff members on this page right now, our executive director is Marty Schwager. He's been around the community for a long time. You may know who that is. And then Mark Wickham is our general counsel. And so those 2 positions are considered on our board for very specific reasons. Our organization is very complex, and when you throw in the insurance and all the finances and all the collaboration that we'll be talking about, it's very important that our organization is run properly. So I have a certain skill set that serves me well, and sometimes it lacks when it comes to the actual professional requirements of the job, and so that's why we have some elected or some staff officials on the board. When it comes to serving our members, we take very seriously trying to make sure that farmers have the opportunity to do better, advance where they want to, and expand and collaborate and all those things that really bring forward a sense of stability to the agriculture sector. So many of these are some of our programs. Take Root is our transition program where we talk about farm transitions from one generation to the next generation. So that is a very complex conversation in a farming operation where you have maybe multiple people involved, multiple entities involved, a lot of capital, sometimes little cash. And how do you make a transition from one generation to the next without giving it all to Des Moines or Washington, D.C. in the transition? So that's what that is. Grow Your Future is actually one of our newer programs. It's focused for our young farmers. So it's hard to start farming today. It's almost impossible if you think about a corn and soybean farmer. And if I want to start farming today, how do I do that? It's almost impossible just with the capital needs and it's very, very difficult. So grow your future. How can a person wants to be involved in production agriculture? How can they do that? Many times it's considered niche farming. You know, maybe we're raising goats, or maybe we've had folks raising mushrooms, and we've had flowers and trucking, and you know, all these other things that I can do to consider myself in production agriculture. And as a young farmer, what tools do I need to put that together? What networks do I need to build out to help me succeed? And that's what Grow Your Future is. Acres of Opportunity is another niche type program focused primarily on small farmers. So many times, Farm Bureau gets pigeonholed as corporate agriculture or large farmers, and that's quite honestly about the opposite of reality. But Acres of Opportunity is specifically designed for those smaller farmers. FB Grit and FB Connect really are kind of the I'll say targeted towards the middle-aged farmers. So we have a lot of young farmer programs. How do we encourage? How do we promote? How do we move those folks forward? And then we've got that middle group. They're not young farmers anymore. They're not ready for retirement. So these two programs are there to help them with their next generational type business decisions and networks, and how do you put those things together. So a lot of opportunities to help our members be successful in their own specific operations. Building leaders. And so we do have a lot of leadership opportunities for our members. And I have taken advantage of all of these. So part of my opening comments, I said yes a few times. I said yes through all of these when given the opportunity to attend them. And I was first elected to the state board in 2016 as a state director. And at that time, there were many current and previous directors at that time who had done, say, ag leaders, and some have done our young farmers program, and some had done our speaker corps program or our farm team. And I was the first one. I don't know why they kept track of this, but I have the distinction of being the first one who's done all of the programs. And I don't know what that means. The only thing I can think of is I'm the one that needed the most help. But it really does highlight the fact that, you know, I truly think of myself as a fifth generation farmer. I'm a Calhoun County farm boy, and I own that completely. And through the opportunity of saying yes to some of these things, I now I literally travel the world promoting Iowa agriculture. And so whether that's across this state, across the United States, or into many other countries, I absolutely love going to groups, traveling the world, broadening my own perspective about what agriculture is, and at the same time sharing the story of why Iowa production is so significant and so literally world class. I'm not going to talk about that. Advocacy. And so this might be a good opportunity for some Q&A if it comes out. So advocacy, that's really one of our main things that we do. We are very busy in advocating, being the voice of the farmer, and trying to make sure that their voices are heard wherever that needs to be heard. You know, if it's on the state level, we send members, we send our farmers to the state capitol at least twice a year, although they're there much more than that, 2 organized times every session. We send several groups multiple times through the year to Washington, D.C. We are constantly meeting with our congressional delegation and you know, meeting with agencies, you know, EPA, you know, USDA, basically whoever needs to hear the voices of the Iowa farmer, we make sure that we get the Iowa farmers in front of those people. So, you know, I was talking with Brad a little bit, and you know, he shared that there might be some policy type things here. What's on your mind? What do you want to know? What questions? I mean, I got some things prompted, but Brad.
So I, no, wasn't a farmer, but did walking, beef castle corn, bale hay, all of that when I was a kid. And today, it said you either have to import food or import workers. So what's the Farm Bureau's stance on I-9 immigration and farm workers? And you know, say more I could, but I think you get the point.
Yeah.
What's the Farm Bureau message on that?
Yeah. Well, you probably unpacked more there than you know, but so the real quick, I'll answer one quick tangent that jumped out at me, and then we'll dive into the worker thing. But importing our food. So, you know, there's the reality is today that the last, I'm going to say 6 years have been very unique in the world of agriculture, food production, exports, imports, and all that balance. Iowa is a very unique place. The United States is a very unique place, and the fact that in both those places we have the unique ability to well overproduce our own domestic ability to consume what we're consuming. Iowa can produce more food than the Iowans can ever possibly consume. And the United States can produce more food than every American could possibly consume. We've always had a perpetual ag import-export positive balance. We had that perpetually, decades upon decades, until about six or 7 years ago. President Trump was in office, and he started the tariff and trade conversations. And for the first time, and many times, pushing back on China is probably the big one, but many other countries as well. And in that conversation, our trade balance went from perpetually positive to near neutral, and cash flows on the farm were tough because of that conversation, where our import and export balance became, in the ag sector, became almost zero. We were exporting just about as much as we were importing. Now, President Biden got elected, and there were really no trade deals that were met at all under the entire Biden administration. Our ag trade sectors suffered tremendously. So we went from near neutral at the end of the Trump 45 presidency. We went negative $45 billion just this last year on our food balance, meaning the United States is bringing in $45 billion of food more than we're selling to other folks. We're relying on other countries to feed our country now, rather than taking care of our own people. And much of that cash flow trickles down into the farm aspect, because if we can overproduce and we're not exporting our goods, that means that the simple laws of supply and demand means we have a lot of supply and we're eroding our demand. So profitability, cash flows on the farms the last few years have been pretty tough. Fast forward to today, Trump in his 47th presidency have some really tough trade and tariff conversations going on. There's a lot of announcements being made. I'm hopeful, whoever's president, I'm hopeful that this trade thing gets figured out soon, because profitability is really, really a challenge right now. So today we are currently, the last national economic situation is we are negative $45 billion in the ag sector. So we'll see where this year ends out. We have had some nice trades so far for corn, but it hasn't yet proven itself to be profitable in the ag sectors. Corn, a tangent of a tangent. Corn profitability right now, we're running about even on a corn bushel. So If you know what the price of a corn bushel is right now, it's right around $4. It's a little bit of a loss when it comes to the balance sheet. And soybeans, we're running negative about $1 a bushel. So to put out a lot of capital, a lot of time, a lot of money on the front side, grow a whole year hoping for profitability at the end, it's looking pretty bleak right now. But I choose not to stay on that side of the conversations very much. But it does highlight some of the challenges. So then to get back closer into Brad's conversation, Brad's main question was immigration. And there's no question that the ag sector in the United States uses a lot of immigrant workers, and Iowa's sort of unique in that we don't necessarily use a lot on the farm side, although there are a lot of immigrant workers in the processing side. So all the food processing, the meat packers, and a lot of the machinery construction and some of those things. There's a lot of workers in that layer of people. They're not necessarily the layer that's on the farm. Now, my counterparts across the country, they have the exact opposite relationship, where they have a lot of immigrant workers on the farm, and so here enters the tough conversation of what do we do with these people? How do we treat that? And under this current administration, how are we navigating those circumstances? So in reality, the reality of the situation is that many of those immigrant workers on those farms that are many times taking care of livestock, whether it be dairy, poultry, some of those sectors, if those people don't come to work, those animals have a bad day if they have another day. And that's very tough. So the life on the reality is the life in a beef animal, yeah, we'll see another day with that animal. The dairy cows, they have to be milked. They won't survive very long if they're not. And quite frankly, a lot of immigrant workers are taking care of those animals. The beef animals, that's not so much of a concern. Pork, a little more of a concern, but again, not so much. The life cycle of a hog is shorter than the life cycle of a beef animal, but nonetheless, those animals need taken care of, and we take a lot of pride in taking care of our animals properly. Now, when you get into poultry, that's an entirely different thing. You talk about turkeys and chickens. I mean, they have life cycles of weeks. And if those people don't come to work, we have serious problems. And that's something that nobody wants to experience. Farmers, I mean, we care more about our animals than I think most people understand. These are God's creatures that we take a lot of pride in being able to take care of well, so that we can raise healthy, sustainable food sources for all Americans. And so to have a disruption in the care of those animals is something that we take extremely seriously. Then you talk about a lot of the high value crops, so fruits and vegetables and some of those things. That becomes a real challenge to bring all of those food sectors, bring them all to the grocery stores, all to those sectors. I dare say that if we thought that COVID created some food disruptions, and I think we all felt some of those things, all of a sudden we wanted to be a little closer to our food sources. This immigration circumstance has potential to be much more serious than the COVID situations. So, regardless of your politics, regardless of your viewpoints on those workers, how we should or shouldn't have those folks around, the reality is that they are an important part of our food systems. And so we need to find a way. We need to find a way to make sure that those folks, if they're here illegally, let's find a way to make sure that they are here legally. And yeah, thanks, Brad. So we can continue to have our food sources stable. Yes, sir.
As we look at air quality that's going on right now, look at these weather changes that are going on. How our agricultural policy affects that.
Yep.
We're taking a look at, we're supporting, to me, supporting the gas industry by biofuels is just helping support that continue, it's another way of supporting the pollution that needs to change in some way. So we have some major policy decisions that we take a look at how does agriculture affect that. The warming zero.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fantastic question. And, there's the entire climate conversation is a huge conversation, specifically in the agriculture sector. And, it affects everybody. So, lately, there's been a lot of talk right here in this town about the nitrates in the water. And, you brought up, some of the warming issues and whatnot. And, I'll be the first to say that everybody, I don't care what industry anybody's working in. I'm a firm believer. It's part of my personal constitution that we can always be better than what we were yesterday. And it doesn't matter if you're painting pictures or if you're growing food. It doesn't matter to me. We can always do better tomorrow. So I'll start with that caveat. But, and I'll be very open. I farm in Calhoun County, and 100% of my acres are in the Raccoon River watershed. That's where I farm. And in 2015, we had this issue, and Bill Stowe was the administrator of the Des Moines Waterworks, and he sued 3 Iowa counties, and I'm in one of those counties. And so not only as a farmer was I involved in that conversation, but as Brad said, I started a precision ag company, so I was dealing with a lot of soil fertility. I had my certified crop advisor's degree for 25 years, and many of my customers were in the Des Moines lobe. And if you don't understand geology, the Des Moines lobe is the last glacier that came down. It's part of why Iowa is what Iowa is in raising the crops that we do raise. The good and the bad of it is that the Des Moines situation pulls their water. The water comes through the Des Moines lobe. The Des Moines lobe has the highest organic matter levels literally in the world, naturally. And that's why we can grow the crops that we can grow, is simply because of geology, because of climate, because of the circumstance that we're in. So then to talk about how do we take care of those natural resources, and there's been a lot of work that has been done, and I'll use my farm as an example. When I was a kid, I remember Dad put me in tractors when I was way too young to be put in tractors. But so I was I think 7. Something like that. And he put me in a tractor with a moldboard plow, and he was in another tractor with a moldboard plow. And my grandpa was in another tractor with a moldboard plow. And we were going circles around each other, plowing up fields black. Because back in those days, the definition of a good farmer was you do not leave any residue on top of the ground. Otherwise you're a bad farmer. And it had a lot to do with disease. It had a lot to do with the technology of the day. It had a lot to do with just the advancements of where we were at the time. Fast forward several years, and today my farm includes strip tillage, which is a form of precision agriculture. I'm putting nutrients exactly where the corn is going to grow next year, and using some products in there to make sure that it's stable. I have incorporated cover crops. We are trying to figure out how to manage all of those situations better, not only for atmospheric climate, but also for soil health and making sure that we're doing what we can. That's my farm, and I can tell you that a lot of my neighbors are trying to find their own ways, and every situation across this state, there are folks in southern Iowa who have different challenges than I have in up in north central Iowa, have different challenges than those in the east, than those in North Dakota and Texas. So the technology of today allows us to be much more efficient with our inputs and the things that we're taking care of. Our carbon footprint dealing with the heating cycle, that actually peaked out in, I had our team look at this because it actually dives right into my interest level. The carbon footprint of agriculture in Iowa actually peaked out in 1977, something like that. And as we've moved today, our carbon footprint in production agriculture today, the part of farming that I'm a part of, we have reduced our carbon footprint naturally by, I think the proper percent, I think it's 45% since 1977. So I think we're making a lot of progress. I think we're doing a lot of things much more better today than we have in the past. And as some of my comments earlier, Iowa has been a world leader, world-class farming that honestly nobody in the entire earth can touch. Much of that is honestly around the idea of conservation. So we lead production in corn. We're the number one producer in corn. We're the number one producer in hogs. We're the number one producer in eggs. We're the number one producer in ethanol, number one producer in biodiesel, the number two producer in wind. But we also are the number one producer in no-till. We're the number one producer in CRP as a percentage. We're the number one producer in grassed waterways, buffer strips, saturated buffers, and there's like 3 or 4 other conservation areas that Iowa farmers lead the country in. Many of those are actually practices that were tried, refined, made better by farmers wanting to do better than we did yesterday so that we can do better tomorrow.
Too much corn that we have to find markets for that are unhealthy for the rest of the world. You know, we're number one in corn, so we're needing to find markets to do that. We're putting that into, as you said, biofuels.
Yep.
Which is continuing to contribute to the warming of the earth rather than looking at other sources of energy that we should be looking at. So those are some major policy getting head on.
Right.
At some point, you know, our government's going to have to address those.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I would love to find some opportunity. What's that? Right. Right. Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, and I would, and I hear what you're saying, but you know, the biofuels industry that we've built in Iowa, honestly, is a better fuel than oil. So honestly, the more ethanol, the more regenerative oil, and we're producing renewable diesel now. So there's a lot. It's not only just generation one of ethanol, but there are other generations, there are other refinements, there are other reiterations that continue to do better through all those steps. And I would argue that our biofuels industry is better, cleaner, safer than traditional fuels. I think it's a very good complement. Yeah. Yeah. Future of the independent family farm in Iowa. So, honestly, I think it's pretty good. I think we are going to enter another period of consolidation. And the economics are tough. I've already talked about that. And the reality of the number of people who want to engage in agriculture are shrinking. And Brad said it, earlier. I mean, my son was farming with us and he chose to go be a state trooper. That's a bad day for me as a farmer, as a dad. My sixth generation who was farming with me has chosen to do something different. I don't know what the future of my farm is currently today. 1893, my great grandfather started it. So what does my farm look like? And so I'm trying my best to make sure that we've got a good future for that. Now, the idea of a family farm, it gets really confusing really quickly if you start driving down those roads. Because I'll be very honest, transparent. The way that I structure my farm, economically, it makes sense for me to operate my farm as a C corporation. So my farm is called Labor Acres Incorporated. Labor is LA. That's my wife, Luann. BRE is the first three letters of my name. So, and we called it labor because that's what I believe in. So Labor Acres Incorporated, if you didn't understand that, you might think that I'm a corporate farmer because my farming is a corporation, but that's simply economics. I've said it 3 times already that I live on the farm that my great great grandfather built, but my dad grew up a quarter mile away that his brother grew up and raised his family on. And I grew up a mile down the road on another farm of our families. So the reality is, in the economic situation that we're in, the technology that we've got available to us today, there will be consolidation in the marketplace. We will have fewer family farms moving forward. And I absolutely hate to see that in production agriculture. That rips at my heart when I say that. I think there's opportunities for some nice niche farms. Can we get into more locally grown foods and some of those? I think there's opportunities there, but the average size of the Iowa farmer today is 440, I think, 440 acres, if I believe the last census, if I remember that correctly. And it's steadily grown, but we're down. Iowa's got 80,000 farmers today, something like that. Yes, sir.
See something that says printed with soy ink, or you go to a coffee shop and you pick up a glass that's made out of corn plastic.
Yeah.
That kind of thing gives me hope as a young person who still lives here, but I get the sense that there isn't a lot, like the economies of scale have not grown so that you could go to a McDonald's and get a corn, a cup made out of corn. Do you see any promise, in the future with bringing in ag to that more kind of green sense of things?
Yeah. And I think that's actually it's a yin and a yang to this conversation. So the every day we're finding more uses for the fiber that's being grown. So we've done a really nice job at the kernel, the protein, the oils, and now the fibers. I mean, the carpet in my house is made from corn. I made sure that I bought corn fiber carpet. Why not? So I think there's a lot of things coming that really can be contributed into the world of sustainability, if you will, and making sure that we are maximizing the efficiency further out of the products that we're growing. I feel like I'm getting a hook pretty soon. So, Joe.
Corn replace like some of the synthetic fibers in sportswear or something like that.
Okay.
Is that a special GMO blend or is it just regular?
No, so I don't know the specifics of that, but that would simply be a refinement of the stover that's being produced, or the fiber that's left over out of the ethanol process. So the ethanol producing process, so you take a kernel of corn and you pull the starch out of there and you make the ethanol from the starch. And then what's left over is the protein. And so it's a lot of those protein sources. Most of the time that goes to livestock feed. So people think you're either choosing fuel or you're choosing food. That's not the reality. Is we're splitting the kernel so that you can get fuel, and we're continuing to feed animals, clothing people, trying to find those other uses. There's currently there was some work being done about creating press wood out of corn stalks, and yeah, so there's a lot of potential uses there. Yes, sir.
Better.
Yeah.
Farmers, take legislation, using some of that nitrates in the water.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. In fact, I would say we work really, really hard at making sure that many of those programs are voluntary, because many of the conservation practices, much of the progress that's being made, has been made in the past and will be made tomorrow, is really born on the farm. And so it's producers like me who are constantly trying to be more efficient, do better, and take care of the environment better. That if we get to the point where Des Moines or Washington says, Tim, right?
Yeah.
Tim, as a producer, you now have to produce this way. Okay, so if we do that, and many of those rules are I would say intended well, right? So we all want better, but if I, as a governing body, say, Tim, now you have to produce in this way, that's going to turn your operation into right or wrong, black or white, and you have to follow this rule. And it does not give you any authority then to try to do something different, try to do something better, because you're just simply meeting the benchmark. I've met the benchmark. Government says good. I'm good. And so we believe in a lot of conservation practices. We believe that we can always do better, but let's not take away our freedom to continue that thought process. Because whatever benchmarks put out there by whatever regulatory body, I have no doubt in my mind that the Iowa farmer is going to meet that benchmark. But am I working to be better for production agriculture, or am I working to meet a benchmark? And if I work to meet a benchmark, all of a sudden my mentality changes as to how I'm going to do that. And the unintended consequences of making an operation black, white, right, wrong, compliant, non-compliant, the unintended consequences of that are really, really tough. Yes, sir.
All of that working that period of time, that relationship is built up with those foreign markets will come back, or there a period of time in which the relationship
That's a very insightful question, and it's go back to Trump 45 and some of his trade conversations against China. China built into South America in that relationship, and we eroded our soybean market, China, and we lost it to South America. It has not come back since then. I don't know that we will gain China's soybean market again because China and South America now have that personal relationship. Now, it's a globe. There's only so many sources of so many products, and Iowa is a powerhouse of that. So we will find homes for our place for our products to go. What does that look like? How are we going to get there? I don't know. There is likely some potential that we've really burdened some of our major trading partners. We've got Canada, we've got Mexico. Our number 1 and 2 trading partners are our closest partners. And currently today, if you watch the news this morning, we don't have an agreement, and we're continuing to hammer those. Trump 45, the greatest trade deal ever done was the NAFTA trade deal, North America Free Trade Agreement. Trump 47 says that agreement's garbage. We can do better. I don't know what that means. I work with our counterparts in Canada specifically, and I have some conversations in Mexico as well. Canada's very frustrated right now. So I hope it comes together, and in the pulpit that I have, that my members have given me, I'm certainly having those conversations, making sure that Administrator Greer hears it from the Iowa farmer that these trade deals are important. I'm talking with Secretary Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, frequently, and so we're all working in the same direction. But it's a real concern. So he's getting closer. I know my time's up. I want to thank you all. Yeah. Thank you all for the opportunity. Brad, thanks for the invitation, and I'll stick around if you guys have some more questions. So thanks, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you, Brent. I'll be honest, Brent's appearance here was not without controversy. We did have feedback from members that said, why are you giving voice to corporate farming? And I would like to remind everybody, we are a 501c3 organization, so we can't take sides, but part of our mission is education. And it is important to hear multiple sides of an issue if we are truly doing our mission of education. Some of you may see Farm Bureau as an enemy. Some people might see Farm Bureau as an advocate for farmers. And is corporate agriculture huge Smithfield corporations, or is it a C corporation like Brent's Farm? I don't know the answer to that. It reminded me of a couple things, though, about engaging with people you disagree with. I had a minister friend who was a very progressive, and he would attend the family leader summits because he said it was important to be a witness to evil. Now, I'm not saying Farm Bureau is evil. And another instance was when I was singing with the Gayman's Chorus, and we had a visiting chorus from Minnesota, and their outreach director challenged the chorus and said, if you're only going places that you're welcome, you're not doing outreach. So it's important sometimes to go places where you're maybe not welcome. And I hope you don't feel that way today, Brent. But judging by the number of questions that I think you still could have answered, I think your appearance here was worthwhile in our educational mission. With that, upcoming speakers. September 5th is Des Moines City Council member Carl Voss. Then October, Ryan Smith from the Iowa Wildlife Federation. November 7th is Matt Blake, who's an Iowa State Senator. And in December, we have Sarah Trone Garriott, who's also an Iowa State Senator and an ordained minister of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We do welcome suggestions for speakers. We already have one from the Iowa Farmers Union, which may provide a counterpoint to some of your presentation. And we would encourage you to come, if we get that speaker, for you to come and attend with us. With that, have a good weekend. And I encourage you to bring new members with for the next meeting. So have a great weekend.